At Christmas dinner, my son David leaned back and asked, almost lazy, "Dad, did you get your 5,000 for December?" The room paused, forks in the air, the tree lights blinking. I felt the heat leave my face. 5,000? I hadn't seen a dime. Across the table, my daughter-in-law Melissa's smile slipped, like a mask cracking. She reached for water and looked away. My throat tightened. I said I didn't know what he meant. David frowned. The lie sat between us like a cold plate. You won't believe what happened next. Before we go on, please subscribe to the channel and share your stories or thoughts in the comments. I told him I must have missed something. My voice sounded thin, even to me. The turkey steam drifted up like fog and made my eyes water. Jason kept chewing, pretending to watch the game on mute over the kitchen island, but I felt his glance. Melissa's napkin twisted between her fingers. David looked from me to her, the way he used to when he was a boy, and I asked who had broken the window. Back then, he answered fast. Now there was a pause, and the pause hurt more than any answer. "Maybe it got delayed," Melissa said, soft and fast, like she was smoothing sheets. "Banks mess up around the holidays." David nodded at me, practical, already moving on. "We'll check it tomorrow." "Eat, Dad. You look tired." Tired. The word slid under my ribs. I picked up my fork and tasted nothing. I wanted to ask why he thought I needed 5,000 in the first place, but the question felt heavy, like lifting a couch alone. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself not to make a scene. I've said that so many times in the last few years that it sometimes feels like a prayer. We passed the rolls. Melissa laughed at something Jason said. A half laugh that didn't reach her eyes. My head kept ringing with the number. 5,000. He had said it like it was nothing, a line item, a subscription. I counted months in my head. If he had been sending that every month, where had it gone? The thought landed with a dull thud. Not to me. My hands went cold even though the kitchen was warm. I watched Melissa refill my iced tea. She didn't look at me. She has a way of arranging the evening that leaves no room for small talk that matters. Scented candles, playlists from Spotify, a schedule laid out on a chalkboard by the pantry. It always felt like I was a guest with a time slot, 5 to 9, no surprises. I used to tell myself that was fine. They had their lives, I had mine. But in that moment, the neatness looked like a lid. David asked about my week. He asked like he was checking a box. "Fine," I said. I told him I'd fixed the loose handle on my front door, even though it took me longer than it would have last year. The truth was, I had felt clumsy turning a screwdriver. I hate that. I used to build shelves from scratch for neighbors. There was a time people asked for my help first. Lately it feels like they ask if I need help instead. There is a difference. It can eat a man from the inside out. "Dad, you sure you're not confusing accounts?" Melissa said lightly. "There were those medical bills. Maybe you used the December money for that." The words came wrapped in concern, but the edge showed. For a second I saw a glint in her eye, quick and then gone. My stomach tightened. I thought of my wife, Ellen, the way she would look at me across a table when someone tried to push me into a corner. Just a flicker of a smile, as if to say, "Stand up straight, Art. You still can." "I know what I pay," I said. "I keep a notebook." "Ma," it came out flat. I did keep one, a small spiral pad with lists and dates. I was suddenly afraid to trust it. The fear surprised me and made me angry with myself. That was the moment I realized how easy it had become for me to doubt my own memory simply because someone younger suggested it. Jason scraped his chair back and went for more mashed potatoes. He gave me a quick look, almost apologetic. He is 15 and tall already, all elbows and speed. We used to shoot hoops in the driveway when he was little. He doesn't ask anymore. I tell myself it's because he's busy. Still, when he glanced at me with worry, I felt something stir that wasn't shame. It was the old feeling of being seen. After dinner, David carried plates to the sink. "I'll check the bank in the morning," he said. "But it should be fine. It's automatic." Automatic. The word stung. Automatic meant he had said it and stopped thinking about it. Automatic meant the thing he did for me existed without me. That thought was a bruise I didn't want to touch. I stood and helped with the dishes. Melissa tried to wave me off, but I stayed. The water scalded my hands through the thin gloves, and the sting grounded me. People talk about dignity like it's a big idea, but sometimes it's just deciding to hold a slippery plate with both hands and not drop it. When it was time for presents, they handed me a box with a flannel robe inside. "You needed a new one," Melissa said. I thanked her. The robe was soft, charcoal gray, expensive. I pictured 5,000 sent every month and this careful gift on top, and a quiet anger lit in my chest. Not loud, not hot, just steady warmth, like the coil under a coffee pot. It surprised me how calm it felt. I folded the robe back into the box and smoothed the paper, because that's what I do when I need to collect myself. I make lines straight. On the drive home, David insisted on taking me. Melissa stayed behind to straighten up. The streets were empty, Christmas lights swaying in the cold wind. "You're sure you didn't get it?" he asked again, not looking at me, eyes on the road. I heard the uncertainty now, not accusation. "Worry." "Yes," I said. "I'm sure." He nodded, jaw tight. He used to have that look when a job site had gone wrong. He would fix it by morning, he always said. He was good at that, fixing things other people broke. I felt pride and sadness sitting side by side inside me like two old men on a bench. He pulled up to my building. "Call me if you need anything," he said. He has said it every time. It is a kind sentence. It also lands like a period at the end of a paragraph. I thanked him and stepped out. The night air cut through my coat. For a moment I stood there and watched the taillights disappear. I used to walk into my home with Ellen's voice in my ear. "Wuncha, how was it?" she would say, and we would make tea and talk until the kettle went cold. I miss the tea more than the talk. The heat in your hands. The proof that something simple is still working. Inside, I set the gift box on the table and sat. I did not turn on the TV. Silence can be kind when you're ready for it. It can be cruel when you're not. I looked at the little spiral notebook and thought about opening it. I didn't. Not yet. I wanted to hold the feeling steady before I loaded it with facts. That sounds odd, maybe, but I needed to understand what the hurt was made of. Part of it was the money, yes. Part of it was being asked to doubt myself in my own son's kitchen. Part of it was realizing Melissa had moved to speak for me without asking, the way someone might reach across and season your food. I remembered a day last spring when Melissa helped me set up online bill pay. She sat at my laptop and typed fast. "This will make things easier," she said. She never asked if I wanted easier. She clicked save and shut the laptop like closing a lid on a box. I felt a small clench in my chest then, the same one I felt tonight. Maybe the story had started there and I missed the opening line. I made tea. The mug warmed my palms and I breathed easier. I ran a thumb along the rim and tried out different explanations. A bank error. A mix-up. Miscommunication. Each one slid off the truth like rain off a tarp. I knew what I'd seen in Melissa's face. That half-second of fear. People can hide words. They can't always hide the first flash in their eyes. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just about a lost deposit. It was about how far I had let myself drift from the center of my own life. I didn't sleep much. At 2 a.m, I sat at the kitchen table and flipped open the notebook at last. Pages of dates, utilities, grocery totals, notes about repairs. Neat numbers, a few smudges. I traced December with my finger. The line was bare, where there should have been something. My stomach settled, which surprised me. I thought proof would make me angrier. Instead, it made me quiet. Facts can do that. They give you a floor. You can stand on a floor. Around 4, I closed the book and looked out at the street. The snow had started, thin and steady. A plow went by, and the sound shook the window. I thought about calling Kristen in the morning. Then I pictured her tight voice from last time. "Dad, you need to let David manage this." And I let the thought go. I didn't want another voice, not yet. I wanted my own voice, and I wanted it to be calm. By the time the sky lightened, I knew only one thing with certainty. I would not raise my voice. I would not plead. I would not accuse without knowing where each word would land. I would look for the seams. I would follow them with my hands until the truth opened. That was the promise I made to myself as the kettle clicked off. It was small, almost nothing, but it was also the first thing in a long time that felt like mine. The morning after Christmas, I sat at my kitchen table with my old spiral notebook open in front of me. The pages smelled faintly of pencil and dust, and the lines looked straighter than my thoughts. I went over the December column 3 times. Groceries, utilities, a small donation I made to the church pantry. But nowhere in those numbers was a deposit of $5,000. I pressed the tip of my finger against the empty space where the line should have been, and left it there until the paper softened. That gap felt heavier than any number I had written down in the last year. It wasn't only about money. It was about whether my son had been giving something to me that never reached me, or worse, whether I had lost track of it, like Melissa suggested. The thought of forgetting something that large was like looking in the mirror and not knowing your own face. I hated that she had planted that seed. I poured myself coffee. My hands shook a little as I held the mug. That happens sometimes in the morning now, but I noticed it more this time. The heat of the mug steadied me. I took a slow sip and asked myself out loud, "Am I losing it, Art?" My voice sounded hollow in the quiet kitchen. I remembered when Ellen was alive. She used to laugh when I muttered to myself, "At least you're still the most interesting person you know," she'd say. I could almost hear her voice now, but the laugh wasn't there. Only the silence. By noon, the question had grown into something I couldn't ignore. I decided to go to the bank. I put on my coat, the heavy brown one Ellen bought me years ago, and walked to the branch 2 blocks down. The sky was gray, the kind of winter gray that flattens everything. My feet felt heavy on the sidewalk, as if each step carried the weight of the doubt in my chest. Inside the bank, the smell of paper and cleaning solution hit me. A young teller with sharp eyeliner greeted me. "Good afternoon, sir. How can I help you?" "I need to see my account history," I said. My voice came out firmer than I felt. For the last 6 months, she typed quickly. The clacking reminded me of typewriters in the old office where I worked before retirement. Back then, people trusted paper more than screens. Looking at her bright monitor, I missed that weight of a page in your hand. She printed out several sheets and slid them toward me. "Here you go." I sat down at a side desk and unfolded the pages. My eyes scanned the lines. Every month, on the 15th, there was a deposit. Exactly $5,000. And every month, the same day, a transfer out. Not to a utility, not to my bills, but to another account. The name listed was Melissa Carter. My stomach dropped, like missing a step in the dark. My daughter-in-law's name printed in black ink, neat and undeniable. I stared at it so long the numbers blurred. I thought maybe I was reading it wrong, so I rubbed my eyes and checked again. But it didn't change. 5,000 in, 5,000 out. Month after month. "Is something wrong, sir?" the teller asked politely, glancing at me. I folded the papers quickly. "No," I said. "Everything's fine." My voice cracked on the last word. I cleared my throat. "Thank you." Outside the bank, the air felt sharper, like every breath was cutting. I held the papers tight in my pocket as if they might fly away. I walked slower this time, letting the truth settle. Melissa had been taking the money. Not once, but again and again, for months. My son thought he was supporting me, but his wife had been quietly siphoning it off. It was betrayal dressed up as kindness. She smiled at me across holiday tables, handed me gifts, poured me tea, all the while keeping what was meant for me. The anger that rose in me wasn't loud. It was steady, quiet, and deep. The kind of anger that doesn't burn out quickly. Back home, I laid the papers on the table and just looked at them. Proof, clear as daylight. For a moment, I almost laughed. Not with humor, but with disbelief. How had I not seen it sooner? Then the laugh died before it left my throat. The papers stared back, and with them came a weight. I couldn't pretend anymore. I thought about calling David right away, telling him everything. But then I saw his face at dinner when Melissa spoke, the way he leaned into her version of things. He wanted simple answers. He wanted to believe his father was just tired, maybe forgetful. If I called him now, with only these papers, would he even believe me? Or would Melissa twist it again, say I was confused, that I didn't understand online banking? The shame of that possibility pressed on me harder than the anger. To have my own son look at me with pity instead of trust, that was worse than losing money. That was losing ground as a father, as a man. I sat in silence for a long time, my head in my hands. I thought of Kristen, my daughter. She already believed I leaned too much on David. She had said it once, sharp as a knife. "Dad, you need to manage your own affairs better. You can't keep expecting David to step in." I had bitten back my answer then. Now I wondered what she would say if she knew the truth. Would she blame me for letting Melissa handle my accounts? Or would she even care? The doubt curled around me like smoke. I hated it. But in the middle of it, another thought rose. Clear, steady. I wasn't imagining things. I wasn't confused. I had proof. For the first time in a long while, the floor under me felt solid. That night I made tea and sat with the papers spread out in front of me. I went over every line, every date. My eyes ached, but I forced myself to see it again and again until the numbers became familiar, until I could carry them in my memory without fear of forgetting. As I sat there, I realized this was no longer about the money. It was about my place in my own family, about whether I let myself be pushed to the side, treated like a fragile old man who couldn't be trusted with his own life. That was the real theft. More than dollars, it was dignity. When I finally went to bed, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. The house was quiet, but inside me, something had shifted. I wasn't sure yet what I would do, but I knew this. I couldn't let it go. Not this time. That was the night I realized silence could protect lies as much as it could protect peace. And maybe, just maybe, it was time I stopped being silent. By mid-morning, I knew I couldn't sit with the papers any longer. The numbers had burned into my head, but numbers alone don't talk. People do. I put the printouts in a manila folder and slipped it into my coat. I told myself I was only going over to drop off a tin of cookies left from Christmas, but that was a lie I used to steady my hands. The truth was simple. I needed to look my daughter-in-law in the eye and ask why. Melissa opened the door with her usual brisk smile, the one that says everything is already under control. Lemon cleaner floated out from the kitchen. Music played low, something bright and forgettable. "Arthur, what a surprise," she said. "David's at a job site. Is everything okay?" "Is everything okay? I won't be long," I said. My voice was even. I kept my coat on, like a guest who doesn't plan to sit. She led me to the kitchen island and poured coffee before I asked. The mug was thick and white, too hot to hold on the sides. She slid a small plate of store-bought biscotti toward me. "You should eat," she said. "You look tired on Christmas." There was that word again. Tired. I set the mug down. "Melissa," I said, "I went to the bank yesterday." Her eyes flicked to me, then to the window. Good. Always good to stay on top of things. "I looked at my account," I said. "The last 6 months. I saw the deposits. 5,000 each month." I took a breath. My throat felt tight, as if a collar had been buttoned too high, and I saw the transfers out. Same day. To an account with your name on it. For half a second her face went blank, like a TV between channels. Then she laughed, soft and practiced. "Arthur, you must be mixing things up. We set up autopay for your bills. Remember? You asked me to help. I told David you needed a hand with online banking. I didn't ask you to move the money to your account," I said. She tilted her head. "It isn't my account. It's a household account I manage. For your expenses. You told me it was easier for you if I just covered the bills and kept it tidy." I stared at her and felt my jaw clench. I hadn't told her that. I would remember if I had. That certainty steadied me like a hand on my shoulder. "Show me," I said, and nodded at the laptop on the counter. "Show me which bills you paid with it." She didn't move. The lemon smell suddenly felt too sharp. "Certain show me, Ice." "Arthur," she said, voice low and gentle, "I know this is frustrating. Getting older is hard. My parents go through the same thing. Sometimes they forget conversations we had. It's normal." The hit landed clean. She made it sound kind, like a blanket tucked around my shoulders. But it was a rope. "I'm not confused," I said. "I'm asking you where the money went." She folded her arms, then unfolded them. as if she remembered it looked offensive. It went to you. That's the point. I pay your utilities, your groceries, the pharmacy. Do you want me to itemize every receipt for David? Is that what this is? Because I can, but I don't think he wants to waste his time on that. The words, waste his time, pricked. I thought of my son's face when he said automatic. I thought of how easy it had become for people to talk over me in this kitchen. David believes he's sending money to me, I said. I'd like to receive it. She smiled again, thinner now. Of course you do. But Arthur, you also told us it was too much for you. That budget's stressed you out. That's why we streamlined things. That was the moment I realized the game she was playing. Every sentence sounded like something I might have said if I were tired or careless, and maybe that was the point, to make me wonder if somewhere I had said it after all. I felt a flicker of anger, not hot, not wild, just clean. I never said that, I said, and I'd like the transfers to stop. Don't make this ugly, she said, and the kind tone dropped. David has enough on his plate. He trusts me to manage the day-to-day. He doesn't need to babysit 2 households. I held her gaze. This is my household, I said, and he isn't babysitting anyone. For a second the room was quiet except for the hum of the fridge. My hands shook, so I wrapped them around the warm mug. The heat steadied me, the way a rail does when you take stairs you don't trust. I'll talk to David, I said, but I wanted to talk to you first. Something hard flickered across her face. Maybe that's not a good idea, she said. He's under a lot of pressure. If you pile on with confusion, it won't help. There it was again. Confusion, not a blunt insult, just a suggestion, a smudge. It was clever because part of me feared the same thing. I hated that the fear lived in me where she could find it. I'm not confused, I repeated, more to myself than to her. I'm his father. She took a breath and then smiled with effort. Why don't you let me handle this? I'll take a look at the transfers. If something needs adjusting, I'll adjust it. Okay? No, I said, and the word surprised both of us. It was small and plain and exactly right. I'll handle it. I left without drinking the coffee. On the way out, I saw the chalkboard by the pantry, full of neat plans. Jason's practice, dentist appointments, a dinner with clients on Friday. Nothing about me. The chalk dust on the ledge looked like snow. The cold air outside snapped at my cheeks and felt like relief. On the sidewalk, I breathed in and counted to 4, the way a doctor once taught me after Ellen died, when grief sat heavy on my chest. By the time I reached my building, my phone buzzed. David. Hey, Dad, he said. He sounded cheerful at first and then careful, the way people do when they are walking onto a porch in the dark. Melissa said you stopped by. Everything okay? I had a question about the transfers, I said. The monthly deposits you make. A pause. She told me you were worried. There's no problem. We set it up to make things easier for you. Melissa keeps track, pays your stuff, makes sure nothing gets missed. That's not how I want it, I said. I took the folder out and held it even though he couldn't see me. I'd like the money to go to me. Another pause. Longer. Dad, are you sure you want to take on that stress? Online banking can be. Look, I don't mean this the wrong way, but it can be a lot. And Melissa says you get mixed up sometimes with the logins. The words landed like stones in my stomach. He wasn't trying to be cruel. He thought he was helping. That hurt more. Hessa. I'm not mixed up, I said. I went to the bank. I saw the transfers to Melissa's account. He exhaled. I could picture him rubbing his forehead the way he does when a bid falls through. It's our joint household account, he said. She manages it. It's the same difference. It's not the same, I said. It's my money. It's my dignity. I didn't agree to this. On the other end, traffic sounds rose and fell. Dad, he said finally. Softer. I just don't want you to worry. You repeat yourself sometimes. Maybe we should get you in to see Dr. Patel, just to make sure everything's okay. No big deal. No big deal. I stared at the mailboxes in my lobby until the brass number swam. If I pushed now, I knew what would happen. Melissa would say, I misread. David would believe the version that let him keep moving. I would be the problem to manage. The thought burned like a slow match. Let's talk this weekend, I said. At your place. All of us. My voice was steady again. I'll bring something to show you." There was a flicker of silence, and then a careful, "Okay." He wanted to avoid a scene. So did I. But a scene wasn't the same as the truth. We hung up with those careful voices people use when they don't want to wake a sleeping kid. In my apartment, I set the folder on the table and stood there, not sitting, as if my body knew if I sat I might sink. The anger was still there, but a strange calm had settled over it, like a sheet of ice on a pond. I replayed the kitchen, the lemon smell, the smile that didn't reach Melissa's eyes, the way she used words like blankets and ropes. I thought about David's "no big deal," and how small that made me feel. I hated that I had allowed it. That was the moment I realized what I needed wasn't another conversation. It was evidence that could not be explained away with soft voices and chalkboard schedules. If I moved too soon, I'd lose ground I might never get back. If I waited and gathered everything, page by page, timestamp by timestamp, then when I spoke, the words would land like nails in a board. I made tea. The mug warmed my hands and I stood at the window watching a light snow begin, flakes slow and deliberate. I promised myself I would not shout, I would not plead, I would not lean on memory alone. I would bring papers, I would ask questions that had only one possible answer. And when they spoke over me, I would wait, and then I would speak again. I set the folder beside the kettle and smoothed the manila edge with my thumb. The fear that I might be slipping, that I might be the forgetful old man they preferred to see, loosened a little. I could still do this. I could still be the man Ellen expected me to be. Quiet when quiet mattered, steady when steady mattered, and firm when the line had to be drawn. I sipped my tea and felt the heat spread through my chest. The pain was still there, of being doubted, of being managed, but it had a purpose now, cause and effect. Their gentle disrespect had pushed me to a decision. I would gather proof. I would protect what was mine, not just the money, but the right to be believed. By the time the cup was empty, the plan was simple. Go back to the bank. Get official statements, not just printouts. Ask about account access, dates, login records. Put it all in order. Then ask for a meeting. Not a fight, a meeting. In their kitchen, at their table, the same table, where the lie first sat, like a cold plate. I felt tired, yes, but not the kind of tired they mean when they say the word. This was the tired that comes before work you know you can finish. I woke the next morning with the manila folder still sitting on the table like a guest who refused to leave. The papers inside were my anchor, but also my burden. I had slept poorly, turning over words Melissa had used. Confusion, tired, easier. They stuck in my mind like burrs on a coat. I kept hearing David's voice, gentle but firm, suggesting I see the doctor. It wasn't cruelty, but it stung deeper than an insult. My own son thought I might be slipping. That thought pressed down heavier than the snow that had fallen overnight. By 9, I buttoned my coat and walked back to the bank. The air was sharp and cold, but walking gave me something to hold on to. Inside, the same young teller greeted me. "Back again, Mr. Carter?" she said with a smile. "Yes," I said. "This time I need official statements. For every month since July. And I need documentation of who has access to my account." My voice sounded calm, almost businesslike. That steadiness surprised me. She typed, printed, and stapled. I watched the pages feed out of the machine. Paper always feels more honest than a screen. I slid the packet into my folder and held it close. Proof, clean, undeniable. When I stepped back outside, I felt taller. Not much, but enough to notice. For weeks I had walked with my head down, avoiding eyes. Now I lifted my chin. But almost as soon as the pride rose, another thought cut it down. David would need more than paper. He would need to hear me speak without faltering, without doubt. And Melissa would fight to twist every line. At home I spread the statements across the table. The pattern was as clear as a map. Deposit in, transfer out, same day, same name. My daughter-in-law's name, printed in black. I traced the lines with my finger until they became familiar. Facts don't lie, but families can. I thought of Kristen then. My daughter. We hadn't spoken in a while. The last call had ended with her saying I leaned too much on David. that I should be more independent. Her tone was sharp, as if my dependence embarrassed her. I told myself not to call, but by afternoon I gave in. I needed to hear her voice, even if it hurt. The phone rang 3 times. Then her voice, clipped as always. "Hi, Dad. Everything okay?" I hesitated. The words felt heavy, but I forced them out. "Kristen, I need to tell you something. David's been sending me money every month. 5,000. But Melissa's been taking it. I have the bank statements to prove it." Silence on the line. Then a short laugh. Humorless. "Dad, are you sure? That sounds unlikely, I'm sure," I said. My throat tightened. I pressed the papers flat on the table. "Gah, I've got it in writing. Every month. Her name's on the transfers." She sighed. The kind of sigh that says she's already tired of the conversation. "Dad, you've mixed things up before. Remember last year with the insurance forms? You thought you were overcharged, but it turned out you hadn't read it right." "That was different," I said quickly. My chest burned. "This isn't a mix-up. It's theft." Her voice sharpened. "Dad, stop. You can't go around accusing Melissa without proof." "I have proof," I said again, louder this time. The papers trembled in my hand. She paused, then said softer, "You're getting older, Dad. Maybe you don't notice things as clearly. Maybe you should let David handle it. He's always been responsible." The words landed harder than I expected. My daughter, my own blood, siding with them before even looking at what I had. I felt a hollowness in my chest. "You think I can't tell the difference between truth and confusion?" I asked. She was quiet for a moment. "I think you're under stress. I think Mom used to handle these things, and without her it feels heavier. That's normal, but you can't drag David into this. He has enough pressure." Her mention of Ellen sliced through me. She was right about one thing. Ellen had kept the balance. She had a way of smoothing edges, of reminding the kids I wasn't just a father, but a man worth respecting. Without her, the cracks widened. Kristen's words proved it. "I'm not dragging him into anything," I said quietly. "He's already in it. He just doesn't know." Kristen exhaled again. "Look, Dad, I have to get back to work. Promise me you'll think before you make this bigger than it is." I wanted to tell her she was wrong. I wanted to shout it. But the line had already shifted to silence. She was gone. I sat there, phone in one hand, papers in the other, feeling smaller than I had in years. Not just because Melissa had stolen, but because my daughter thought I was losing my grip on reality. That cut deeper than Melissa's theft. If your own children don't trust you, what do you have left? I put the phone down and pressed both hands on the table. The wood felt solid, cool under my palms. I breathed in and out slowly. That was the moment I realized I couldn't fight this with words alone. Words could be twisted, but papers, dates, numbers, they couldn't be erased. So I made a decision. I would not argue with Kristen again. I would not try to convince her over the phone. I would let her believe what she wanted for now. When the time came, I would lay everything out in front of them all. Together. No more side talks, no more whispers. I picked up the folder and tucked it back into its place. My hands had stopped shaking. The anger was still there, but it was quieter now, steadier, more like resolve. I poured myself tea and held the warm mug. The heat grounded me. Families can make you feel small without raising their voices. I had lived long enough to know that. But I also knew this. Silence lets lies grow. And I was done feeding silence. That night, as I turned off the light, I whispered to myself, "Gather proof. Stay quiet. Wait for the right moment." The words felt like a plan, and the plan felt like strength. I was sorting the statements again when I heard the soft knock. Not the quick tap of a delivery, not the slow drag of a neighbor. 2 short taps, then one more like a question. I opened the door and saw my grandson Jason standing there with his hood up and red on the tips of his ears. He looked taller than last week, or maybe it was the way he stood, shoulders tight, eyes not quite meeting mine. "Hey, Grandpa," he said. "Can I come in?" "Of course," I said. My voice came out steadier than I felt. I stepped back and he slipped past me, hands in his pockets, moving like someone trying not to be heard. He didn't sit. He paced once by the table, glanced at the manila folder, and then looked at me. "I heard something," he said. His voice was low and flat, the way it gets when you force it to be calm. At home, Mom on the phone. I felt the old part of me. The part that wants to protect children from adult mess, rise up fast. I wanted to say, "You don't have to be in this," but the words stayed in my throat. He had come on his own. He needed to say it. "I was in the hallway," he went on. She thought I was upstairs. She was mad. Like, not yelling, but talking fast. She said, "He's not going to notice, he never looks. David set it up for a reason." And then she said, "I moved it the same day. It's cleaner that way." The room shifted. My kitchen light hummed. I could hear the radiator tapping in the wall. My hands went cold even though the apartment was warm. I pulled a chair out for him and one for me. We sat. "Who was she talking to?" I asked. My voice was careful, like stepping down an icy stair. "I don't know." She didn't say a name. She said, "I can't talk long, he's here." Hosty. I think she meant Dad. Then I came down and she hung up. He swallowed hard. "Grandpa, are you in trouble?" Like, with money. I looked at his face. My son's eyes. My wife's mouth when she was trying not to cry. I felt a sting behind my own eyes. "I'm not in trouble," I said, "but something wrong is happening. You hearing that helps me understand it." He nodded, but the nod was shaky. He took his hands out of his pockets and pressed his palms on the table like he needed to feel something solid. He looked at the folder. "Is that proof?" "Yes," I said. "Bank statements. Your dad sends money to me. Your mom transfers it out to another account." "The same day." His jaw tightened. He stared at the edge of the folder with a focus that would have looked like anger in a grown man. In him it looked like fear. "She isn't a bad person," he said fast, as if he needed me to agree before I answered. "She takes care of everything. Sometimes she does stuff and says it's for the best." I remembered being 15 and watching adults make choices they called for the best. I remembered how small that made me feel. I took a breath. "I'm not asking you to take sides," I said. "I'm asking you to tell the truth you heard." "That's different." He nodded again. "I can tell, Dad," he said, then flinched, like the thought hit him after the words left. "I mean, if I need to." "Not yet," I said gently. "I don't want you in the middle more than you already are, but I might need you to tell me the exact words again, and maybe, when the time is right, to say them in front of your dad. Only if you're ready." He looked at me for a long second, and in that silence I felt something old and strong. A bridge I thought had fallen down, still there under the fog. "I can do that," he said. His voice had that thin, brave sound boys use when they walk into a dark room and won't ask for a light. "Thank you," I said. "I meant it like you mean water when you are thirsty. I won't put your name forward without asking you first. I promise." He sat back then and finally looked around the apartment. He noticed the neat stacks of paper, the old clock, the framed photo of Ellen on the shelf. He pointed at the photo. "I like that one," he said. "Grandma looks like she knows a joke." "She did," I said. My throat loosened. "She usually did." He stood and pushed his hands back into his pockets. "I should go. Practice soon." He hesitated at the door. "Grandpa, are you mad at me? For telling?" "No," I said. I put a hand on his shoulder. It felt like the right weight in my palm. "I'm proud of you. You did a brave thing." He left, and when the door closed, the apartment felt different. The same chairs, the same kettle, the same old rug. But the air was lighter. The proof in my folder had been solid. Jason's words made it human. Numbers don't look you in the eye. A grandson does. That was the moment I realized I wasn't alone in this. I had a witness. I had a reason bigger than hurt. I made tea and watched the steam twist up like a ribbon. My hands didn't shake this time. I took out a notepad and wrote down Jason's words as close as I could remember them. He's not going to notice. He never looks. David set it up for a reason. I moved it the same day. It's cleaner that way. I underlined the lines that mattered. Not going to notice. Cleaner that way. Those were not the words of someone managing my bills. Those were the words of someone hiding a path. The tea warmed me all the way down. I stood and looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. I had not liked what I saw lately. The slump in the shoulders, the softness around the jaw, the old man stance that sneaks up on you. I straightened my back and lifted my chin. That small change did more than it should have. I shaved, slow and careful, the way my father taught me when I was 12. Short strokes, he used to say. Let the blade work. I trimmed the edges clean. The face that looked back still had lines, still had years, but there was a man there I recognized. Ellen would have smiled at that, I think. I cleaned the kitchen, not to pass time, but to clear space. I filed the statements in order by month. I wrote a list. Request login history from the bank. Ask about IP addresses on transfers. Get a printed authorization list. It felt like building a small bridge, plank by plank. Work I knew how to do. Then I put on my coat and walked to the park. The cold bit my cheeks, but it woke me up in a good way. I watched a boy throw a football to his father in the thin winter light. The throw was wild. The father jogged to catch it, and they both laughed when he missed. I stood there longer than I meant to, hands deep in my pockets, and let that sound write something soft over the hard spots inside me. On the way home, I stopped at a little barber shop I'd avoided for months because it felt like work to talk. Just to clean up, I told the barber. He nodded and got to it. The snip of scissors was steady and familiar. When he spun me toward the mirror, I almost didn't recognize myself. I didn't look younger. I looked present. That was enough. Back at home, my phone buzzed. A text from David. Sunday dinner? Bring whatever you wanted to show me. I read it twice. The old fear tried to creep in, the fear that I would stand in his kitchen and lose my words, but Jason's knock was still in my ears. I typed back, Sunday works. I'll be there. I set the phone down and took a deep breath. The plan had edges now. Statements in order. Jason's words in writing. A calm voice, not rising, not pleading. Ask questions with only one answer. Who authorized these transfers? Why was the money moved the same day? Why wasn't I told? I practiced the questions out loud until they felt natural in my mouth. I did not practice accusations. I practiced facts. As the light faded, I pulled out the flannel robe they gave me at Christmas and laughed. A small, dry laugh that surprised me. A gift on top of a theft. It would have crushed me last week. Now it looked like a prop from a play I was about to step out of. I folded it neatly and put it on the chair. I thought about calling Kristen, but I let the thought pass. She had chosen her story for now. I would not argue her out of it. I would show her, when the time came. Proof first, words after. That was the order that protected my dignity. Before bed, I went through a simple routine I had abandoned after Ellen died. I laid out a clean shirt. I polished my shoes. I checked the time of the bus, even though David would likely offer to pick me up. These were small acts, nothing anyone would clap for. But they stitched me back together in ways I could feel. You don't rebuild a house by shouting at the wind. You measure, you cut, you set the nail straight, you strike once, then again. Lying in the dark, I pictured Jason at my door, hood up, brave and scared, telling me what he heard. I felt pride settle over the ache. The ache didn't leave, but it changed shape. It had a use now. Their indifference had pushed me to gather proof. Melissa's quiet theft had pushed me to stand up. Jason's courage pushed me to do it with care. Cause and effect. That line ran clear as a chalk mark on a board. I closed my eyes with a thought that didn't scare me this time. Sunday is coming. And when it does, I will be ready. Sunday came. The morning light through my curtains looked no different from any other day, but I felt it deep inside. Today would not be ordinary. I had laid out my shirt the night before, pressed it as best I could, and polished my shoes. These were small things, but each one reminded me I was not a man to be pitied. I was someone who could stand tall. I placed the folder into my bag with careful hands, as if the papers were glass. They weren't just numbers anymore, they were my voice. Proof that no one could talk over. Still, my stomach turned as I locked the door behind me. Fear and pride walked beside me all the way to David's house. Melissa opened the door. Her smile was polite, practiced, but her eyes flickered when she saw the folder in my hand. That half-second look told me more than words. She knew. David came from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel. "Dad," he said warmly, "glad you're here. Dinner's almost ready." Jason waved from the couch. His eyes met mine, and I saw it. Quiet strength, he remembered. We sat at the table. The smell of roast filled the air, but I tasted nothing. My hands rested on the folder in front of me. My heart thudded so loud I wondered if anyone else could hear it. Halfway through the meal, David looked up. "So, Dad," he said lightly, "what did you want to show me?" This was it. I opened the folder and laid out the papers one by one. "These are your deposits," I said. My voice was calm even. 5,000 every month. And here, same day every time, the money moved. To an account under Melissa's name. Melissa's fork clattered against her plate. Her cheeks went pale, then flushed. "Arthur," she said quickly, "you're misreading." But I didn't let her finish. For the first time in months, I didn't shrink back. "No," I said firmly. "Musto." I went to the bank. "These are official statements. They don't lie." The room went still. Kristen, who had driven in for the weekend, leaned forward, frowning. "Dad, are you sure?" Before she could finish, Jason spoke. His voice cracked at first, but he pressed on. "I heard Mom on the phone," he said. His eyes darted to David, then back to me. She said, "He's not going to notice." I moved it the same day. It's cleaner that way. The words hung in the air, heavy as bricks. David froze. He looked at Melissa. "Is that true?" His voice was low, dangerous in its quiet. Melissa shook her head fast. Jason misunderstood. "He's a kid." Jason's face went red, but he didn't back down. "I know what I heard," he said. His hands gripped the table, knuckles white. "I swear." I reached over and touched his arm. "He's telling the truth," I said softly. "And now you see it in black and white." I tapped the papers. "This isn't confusion. This isn't old age. This is betrayal." Melissa's mask cracked. "Fine," she snapped. "Yes, I moved it. But it was for the household. For Jason, for the mortgage, for things you don't even see. You wouldn't know how to handle that much money. You'd waste it." The sting cut deep, but I kept my voice steady. "You don't get to decide what I can handle. That money was meant for me. Not for you to siphon. Not for you to hide." David sat back, rubbing his face. He looked at Melissa, then at me. "I thought I was helping you," he said. His voice cracked. "All this time I thought you were helping me," I said. My throat tightened, but I forced the words out. But I never saw it. And when I asked, I was told I was tired, confused, forgetful. Even my own daughter thought I was slipping. I glanced at Kristen. She looked down, ashamed. "Do you know what that feels like? To doubt yourself in your own home? To wonder if maybe they're right. Maybe you are fading?" Silence. The only sound was the hum of the fridge. That was the moment I realized. I said quietly, that silence protects lies as much as it protects peace. "I won't be silent anymore." David looked at the papers again, then at Jason. The boy's face was pale but steady. Finally, David turned to Melissa. "You lied to me. To my father. To all of us." Melissa opened her mouth, but no words came. She pushed back her chair, the legs screeching against the floor, and walked out of the room. The slam of the bedroom door shook the house. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then David looked at me with eyes I hadn't seen in years. Not the look of pity, but the look of respect. "Dad," he said, voice low. "I'm sorry." I shook my head. "Don't be sorry. Just see me. That's all I ask." Kristen reached for my hand. "Dad," she whispered. I was wrong. Her eyes brimmed, and I felt both pain and healing in that moment. Jason leaned closer. "You weren't confused, Grandpa," he said firmly. "You were right." The words filled the hollow place inside me more than the money ever could. I folded the papers back into the folder. "I don't need revenge," I said quietly. "I only need the truth seen. And it has been." Dinner sat cold on the plates, but I didn't care. I felt lighter than I had in years. That night as I walked home under the clear sky, I thought of Ellen. I imagined her beside me, her hand slipping into mine, her quiet smile saying, "Stand up straight, Art. You still can," and I had. I realized then the true gift wasn't money or even justice, it was dignity, and dignity, once reclaimed, can't be stolen again. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your own story in the comments. And if you're curious about the next story, just click the box on the right. Thank you for watching.